Here's a serious question. Is patriarchy sinful? Let's explore. There's no deeper resentment within the progressive theological movement than for the ghost of patriarchy. When we hear from progressives that patriarchy is a society in which males hold primary power and predominate in roles of political leadership, moral authority, and control of property, we soon learn that this is in fact a bad thing. It's time we're told to smash the patriarchy. If we were to ask, however, whether patriarchy is sinful, let's first try to reckon with its origin and decide, in the first instance, if it's absent from God's original creation. Progressive theologians invariably attribute every patriarchal custom to the fall and curse. This is in contrast, however, to the teaching of the Apostle Paul, whose prohibition that a woman should teach or exercise authority over a man is for the reason that Adam was formed first, then Eve. It is creation prior to the fall through which a form of moral authority was ordered according to gender. The reasoning Paul employs, however, appears to have confounded some scholars. His logic, they say, is hard to fathom. It is difficult to understand on any reading. Others insist that the creation is morally benign. Greg Boyd asks, what difference does it make? And along with others, wouldn't the same logic require that the animals have authority over humans since they were created before us? Another scholar protests that to suggest that this is what Paul meant rests on highly questionable logic, highly debatable justice, and suspect theological consistency. Dr. Tom Schreiner correctly points out, however, that readers of 1 Timothy would not have scratched their heads with perplexity and amazement. The appeal to the prior formation of Adam asserts that Adam's status as the firstborn or first form carried with it the leadership appropriate to a firstborn son. This status of the firstborn is implied in the chronicler's connection between the family chief and the place of the firstborn, and in the choice of Jehoram to reign over Judah because he was the firstborn. It is clearly implied too by David's status being made by God the firstborn, the highest of the kings of the earth. The Apostle Paul asserts too that Christ was the firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. The egalitarian William Webb explains it this way. The general idea of primogeniture logic is that the first within any creative order receives special prominence over others in that order. It does not hence confuse the first plant or animal with the first human being. And to be sure, the Israelites never gave prominence to firstborn livestock ahead of the firstborn son in the family household. Webb, however, adds that this does not mean that a contemporary Christian should necessarily utilize or endorse this kind of logic and subsequent practice today. The whispers of patriarchy in the garden, he asserts, may have been placed there in order to anticipate the curse. The idea here is that since the Garden of Eden featured anticipations of the curse, like the roaming serpent, the whispers of patriarchy might also anticipate the curse, and we should of course not promulgate the curse from which Christ redeemed us. Are we really to believe, however, that Paul in the New Testament appealed to a curse anticipation to justify his point about teaching and authority? Paul preached Christ, who redeemed us from the curse, and yet we're told he would also appeal to an anticipation of the curse. It's much easier to appreciate that, with respect to moral authority at least, and its application in the church as a society of Christians, God created the order for good, just as he called his creation very good.